Welcome to an all-new episode of Work in Progress with John Lane and Will Barfield. This podcast explores leadership traits under stress with a special guest each week. We use a simple and accurate OAD assessment to identify key personality traits or superpowers, as well as the shadow side, kryptonite traits that appear when we're under stress. As always, we'll have some pod banter, shameless plugging, and we'll even let our guests talk for a bit. Of course, no humble brags. Welcome to the show. Everybody, to a brand new episode of Work in Progress with John Lane and Will Barfield. We are recording in the past. Well, Will is about 5 seconds in the past to us for technical difficulties. So we will, there's a smile. We will have to grin and bear it. That's what happens with a high production value operation like ours. Will, welcome back from vacation. Did you drink a lot of bourbon?
Yes.
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 You know, it'd be funny if I asked you.
Yeah, we were on the Kentucky Bourbon Trail.
Were you driving on the trail?
No, we had someone drive us, so we made sure we were safe.
I'm super glad to that. We are live again. This is becoming the thing that we do. We're live from Sales HQ here in world famous Morrisville, North Carolina, with Vince. He'll tell us a little more about that when we get going. And I'm your sound man. So if there's any technical screw-ups, it's my fault. But still, it's fun to be live. It's fun to see everything that's going on. OG Larry Long is here, so we got to see him, which was great. And we're proceeding with episode 65, if you can believe it. I don't have a lot of banter except to say that I got a food-borne illness that will knock your socks off. And I have been down for the count for about 5 days. That's the bad news. The good news is I've lost 12 pounds. I didn't lose 1 pound on Noom in 2 months, and I lost 12 pounds. So I don't know. Was it worth it? Where's the smile?
Do you know what it was that got you sick?
No, you never know. You never know. But 12 pounds. I think you missed the lead on that one.
No, I think that's the best diet plan you've been on.
The most effective. And the money I saved on eating, I mean, that's just going right to the retirement fund. You got anything to add to this mess, this dumpster fire of a podcast yet?
No, I think this podcast is going to be fantastic. I'm glass half full today.
You are. Half full of bourbon, sounds like. All right. Well,
Vince is here. Come on.
I'm John Lane. 2, 1.
I'm Will Barfield on delay.
And we are
a work in progress.
Nailed that. All right. Let us get into this. As always, we have a special guest. Let's skip our special guest banter because it will not work with the delay. Welcome, Vince. How are you?
I am doing incredible, John.
You're doing incredible. Why is that?
Well, because I have two of my favorite people in the triangle with me today.
Who is that?
Oh, that's true. Larry Long and Will Barfield and John Lane.
That is true. We are amongst your favorite people in the triangle. So glad to be here. There he goes. There's the laugh. Tell us about you and Sales HQ. It's an incredible venture. And I will have to admit, when you and I were talking on the Zoom, when we first met and you were telling me about it, I had no idea what you were talking about. I just didn't catch. But now I see all the excitement going on out there, and I'm very impressed.
Yeah, I mean, so the high level of Sales HQ is it's a co-selling community for high-performing sellers and sales teams. Simply put, it's a flex space that's for sellers. So take WeWork, but morph it to salespeople. WeWork, you can't walk around and talk to people and have conversations out in the open. or collaborate, right? And Sales HQ, that is, you got full permission, right? We have a sales floor like you would in the old days.
Yeah.
And people are sitting next to each other. They're learning from each other. They're collaborating with each other. They're grabbing coffee with each other. And then we also, on top of just being a space you can actually get work done, we have lots of events, right? So everything sales enablement, sales oriented will be here as well. So we've got a bunch of events lined up for next week and the weeks after. So it's going to be a hub of activity.
The master classes.
Master classes. We're also going to venture into the podcast avenue. We're going to do live from Sales HQ. We're literally going to do a live, meaning in front of an audience.
Wow.
So myself and a guest will stand up in front of a live audience, and we'll have it, and then we'll take live Q&A, and then we'll broadcast live as well.
All right, let's talk about your internet speed.
But I'll turn it up for that.
Turn it to 11.
I'll get the ducks swimming faster.
But I walked around. I saw the training rooms and the learning centers and the breakout rooms and all that stuff. So I now get it. So good for you. All right. So we are now going to get into this. We always start out by talking about our weekly theme, which is leadership traits under stress. And our leadership traits under stress come from the OAD assessment. Will, I think I'll do this solo just because of the lag. But where's my mouse? Whoa. Did you see that? Oh, I know what happened. Here's funny. I have a new blooper for me. I was on the Zoom. And I couldn't make any of the things work. I was looking at the wrong screen. Okay, so we use OAD to unlock your leadership traits. Then we turn them into superpowers of kryptonite. We like it because it's highly accurate and extremely easy to administer. It eliminates social desirability distortion, which means you don't really know what we're asking, so you just pick adjectives and you get a better response. And it's built to the standards of these institutions and rating agencies, which means you can trust the data that comes out of it. When we introduce OAD, we always use our leadership style matrix. We look at the difference between generalists and specialists. We look at the difference between socially oriented and technically oriented people. And then we swizzle that together and we put you in a quadrant. So I am a socially oriented generalist. I'm in the builder quadrant. I am a negotiator. Ready for this, Will? Will is a...
Yes. Technically oriented generalist. Architect, quadrant upper left with Vince, and I'm a developer.
That's right. And Vince is the same, except he is an entrepreneur. I will tell you, if OAD has taught me anything, it's taught me how to spell entrepreneur. So whatever comes of this consulting practice of mine, I've learned some spelling.
There you go.
So I'm pleased at that.
It's a win-win.
Will?
Yes, Vince, it's time for your big question. After going through this process, sir, how does it feel to be compressed down to a two-dimensional table as a representation of you?
I love it. And the graph up above, I'm thinking of making that like a logo and putting it on shirts. You know what I mean?
Yes, I like that.
And when people ask me about me, I'll say, if you want to know anything about me, look at my shirt and the logo. That will tell you everything you need to know.
You know that old saying, talk to
or maybe like a bicep tattoo?
Oh. You know that old saying, talk to the hand, right? This would be talk to the logo.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is interesting because some of our clients that really take this seriously, they have their quadrant and that kind of representation in their office when you come in and stuff.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So
I get it.
I love it. I'm glad you thought of that.
I love these things. I mean, I've done different types of analysis like this, and it always amazes me how accurate they are when you get into it, right? If you're honest with yourself anyway.
That's right. And ours is a little more accurate, right?
That's important.
The most.
And a little easier to use. Good.
That was easy to use. There's no doubt about that.
Thank you about that. We got half of a promotion. All right. So now we're going to go through the superpowers and kryptonites that came out of the system. Will, why don't you talk to Vince about some of these?
I will, John. Hello, Vince. So, like me, Vince's readout is one where, assertiveness is, the most dominant trait. And anyone who takes this assessment and ends up in the architect quadrant and the entrepreneur readout, Vince, is going to get these superpowers as a part of their, kind of bundle of descriptors. As you look at those three, is there one from this grouping that you feel is most accurate that you perceive about yourself, or the others have mentioned you as kind of part of your character?
I definitely,
just one of those.
Yeah, I think, first of all, I think they all resonate pretty well, but I would say that decisive leadership is the one that stands out the most to me. I tend not to be someone that flip-flops or overthinks things, right? So I'd say that one stands out the most.
And that makes sense to me, because when we look at your profile, you have what we call
interacting with you, I'd agree.
Yeah, well, you have that low P for patience or impatience, which will come up later. So you're assertive. We like to think of architects as being direct with high confidence. That's how we sort of summarize that. And when you have that lower P, that impatience or that urgency, you're going to make a decision and plow through it with confidence. Doesn't mean you're always right.
That's true.
But you're not gonna waffle on it. Yeah, I love that.
I guess I can't go into politics then, so
it would be hard.
On the kryptonite side, Vince, same situation. These are the generics that come with the quadrant and the entrepreneur status. For architect, one of these, sir, that resonates most.
I was just about to cut you off to show you the one that resonates most, which is impatience. But believe it or not, I actually have gotten better over time. But still, I am probably the most impatient person ever, right? Especially like starting a new business. Like I expect to be at 100 members by now, right? Like it's just, I have to work on that. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, and that impatience can go along with drive. But it can also sort of like push you into hasty decisions and some other things I'm a checklist guy too. I want to get stuff done, but sometimes you can get stuff done maybe not as well as you could have if you sort of let the wine breathe a little bit. But yeah, cool.
Thank you, John, for the slide update there. Vince, we're going to talk about your own comments on the readout, right? You and John had some back and forth pre-show. These are the things that you chose to, elaborate on. Walk us through these bullets one by one, please. This is kind of where the leaders talk about themselves, and we're going to focus right now on your superpowers.
So start from the top, Will?
Wherever you like, brother.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
or the middle or the bottom. Mix it up, baby. Whatever you want to do.
Yeah, tech mastery. Shoot. Being an entrepreneur, it's like you do 15 jobs at any given time, right? So, like for example, this morning I had to figure out how to verify my domains on HubSpot. Like, I'm not the most technical person, but I had to spend an hour this morning figuring that out and getting it done. And because I'm impatient, you don't think I just focused on that and got that thing done, but I had to master that and move on to the next thing that I had to do, and so on and so forth. So that's a very real thing on a daily, if not hourly basis with what I do now.
You keep going.
Decisive leadership.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I forgot what it's called. It's a graph, and it breaks things up into quadrants, right? And there's the urgency line and there's an importance line. And I always kind of operate with that in mind. Like if it's not urgent and important, put it on the back burner. If it's urgent and important, focus on those things and make those decisions and tackle those things first. So that's how I kind of, knock things down. If it's little tiny things, I really don't worry about them. I worry about the big things that's going to impact me personally, impact the business, right? So, and then John, you hit it on the head. Like I yes, sometimes I probably make decisions that are maybe a little too quick, but I don't think those tend to backfire on me. Maybe maybe it should take a little bit more time, but I think being decisive and sticking with it is the most important thing for me.
I think the sticking with it is what is more pertinent than simply the quick decisions. I think when people Don't stick with
Awful
their
back
decision.
and forth. Yeah.
Sometimes it takes weeks or months to know the impact of a decision. And if you're changing gears before that answer is really true, then it's never going to be right because you never get the time.
And then change catalyst. Geez, I've done so many different things throughout my career. I kind of get bored doing one thing, and I'm doing 3 things right now. Right. So change is my thing, man. I actually love it. Right. I'll give you an example. This is not fair to my family, but in a 2-year period, we moved 5 times for real with 3 children and a dog. I didn't enjoy every one of those moments, but the point is that we got through it, my wife and I and the family. And at points during that change, we embraced it. You know what I mean? Because it's part of the whole thing, right?
Are you running from the law or something?
We got moved to California for relocation for a job. We lived in a temporary house, then moved into a permanent house. Then a year later, we moved back from California to North Carolina to a temporary house to a permanent house. So it wasn't, that's a lot of boxes.
We moved a lot, but not that much. Well, I will say, if you remember your OAD chart, that very low P is somebody who not only is impatient, they tend to thrive in change.
Yes.
So,
yep.
All right, Vince, we're not sure that you have weaknesses, but if you did, they would be on this slide.
Yeah.
So, regardless, as much change as you desire and pursue, as much risk as you embrace, you are going to encounter stressful and challenging situations at work, at home, and that the superpowers can invert and become kryptonite. This is the part of the show that people enjoy the most, the vulnerable side of our leaders who joined us here today.
Oh, yeah.
Can you talk through these bullets about these topics and the exposure to weakness that you've dealt with and conquered?
So, the impatient things for me, the kryptonite, it isn't just the classic sense of impatience. The impatience leads to me for stress and anxiety because in my mind, I should be somewhere else or further ahead or whatever it is, which leads me to worry, anxiety, and all that stuff. So there's times I have to just speak to other people and they'll say to me, "Hey, Vince, you're doing a great job. Like, what do you, I have to talk to other people that have a different perspective to bring that impatience, that anxiety down to say, stop, take a time out, enjoy what you're currently doing or the results you're currently having." And all that happens tied to impatience. So it absolutely is the thing that on a daily basis, I have to tell myself. And one of the exercises someone gave me said, at the end of every day or at the end of the week, write down the top 3 things you accomplished this week. So you can end your week and know that you go into the weekend, whatever, wow, that was a lot. So I try to remind myself that, and that really helps because otherwise I'll just continue to think about things I didn't do. Right, exactly.
Do you have a problem being present? Does your impatience put you somewhere else?
At times, you caught me before, right? But
trust me, Barfield does the same thing. He catches up on his email when I'm kicking off the show.
But so yes, I think like anyone else, certainly it does that. But I try to catch myself, and I want to be respectful, especially if I'm meeting with other people that I don't do that. Right? If I do that, it's probably because I'm hurting myself because I'm doing 5 things at once, and I shouldn't be doing 5 things at once. Yeah. But the one thing that I'll be honest with you, on this, the kryptonite stuff, the resistance to structure, I kind of want to push a little bit back on that, right?
Please.
Because I'm a process guy. Like as a sales leader, I think I did an excellent job of providing my team with good structure and process in place, not because I'm a micromanager, but because I want to see them exceed. And I know that if they follow a process, they have a higher degree of high performance. And so I also put the same kind of structure on myself. Like, for example, now I've gotten buttoned down to when I have a visitor to Sales HQ for do a tour, I now have a process of how we literally greet them when they come in.
Some guy greeted me.
Where we go next.
Knew my name.
Take the time to really understand them, what they're like. it took me about a couple of weeks, but I figured out the right process that worked for both parties. So like I like structure, and for me, with the amount of stuff I do, if I don't have structure, oh my God, I'll be running around like a chicken.
So let's talk about that. I also have a high A and low D. We differ in the E for extroversion. Mine is high, yours is on the lower, more technical side. But what I've found is I have turned myself at work into a lower right, so socially oriented specialist, because I know that the upper right guy is not employable, right? So I have learned to build systems and checklists, and I've got my fancy remarkable.
Nice.
And at the start of every week, I write down my priorities for the week, then I cross them off, and I roll over to the next week. I've got a CRM that reminds me if I haven't been in touch with somebody. I live in that thing, because if I don't, unemployable.
Yeah.
And I suspect you're sort of the same, in that your high A and low D is your natural state, which is walk through a wall, find a straight line and walk through a wall. But you can't operate that way because of the wake it leaves behind you. So you have learned to build these things around you, even if it's not your natural state.
Yeah.
That's how I tend to read that.
You're probably a little bit more extreme than I am in that scenario, but yes, I don't think I'm far behind.
Yeah,
for sure.
Cool.
And then the delegation thing, I'm not a micromanager, never have been, don't believe
You're
it.
the opposite of micromanager.
Yes. And that means that my kryptonite is potentially, I assume everybody operates the way I do, and they just need a little guidance and they're off to the races, where, probably providing in the certain situations a little bit more detail, a little bit more guidance. Those people probably flourish even better, right? So that's something I need to be cognizant of, for sure.
Depending on the person, what Will and I have learned about technical people, especially with technically oriented people, when they're leaders, is that they have a full 3D movie in their head.
Yeah, that's true.
And 3 words come out of their mouth, right? So it's not that they haven't thought about it, it's that the communication is brusque. So like when I talk to startup founders, this is a hard lesson to give, but most startup founders are technical.
Yeah.
They think their communication is satisfactory, and they're wrong.
So tell me if I'm weird.
Yeah.
I will have a thought in my head, or I'll be thinking about something.
Yes.
And I've already, whether it's I'm walking or working out or whatever it is, I've already worked out things in my head.
Right.
Like I visualized it. I worked it out. I know what I'm going to do. I know what I'm going to have to respond to the email, or what I'm going to put in that deck, or whatever it is. And then, or I need to talk to somebody about this thing. I've already worked it out in my head. Sometimes then when I speak to them, I thought I already had that conversation. Do you know what I'm saying? And so then when I say like, oh, we're going to do that thing, with such and such, they're like, well, what?
Go back a paragraph.
Right.
100%. And that's the inner monologue of somebody with a high assertiveness, low patience, and also lower E for extroversion. That conversation is happening in your head, but it's not what's on the table.
Yeah. So
for people like me, socially oriented, especially on the more extreme side, if I ever have a thought, it's hit my lips and come out before I've even processed it. You're going to be the opposite. You're going to process the whole, especially a bit when you were coming up. If you were in a meeting and everyone was going around lightning round, and you had to weigh in on the subject, that was probably hard for you. You're like, wait, can I have a minute? We just heard about this. I want to formulate my opinion. And there are some leaders who think of that as resistance or being shy. And you're like, no, if I'm going to speak, it's going to be meaningful.
Yeah.
And it's just different. So that's what we coach in the business side of this, is for leaders to understand themselves and everyone else around that leadership style matrix, so that they get it together. Will, it's been nice having you on the pod today.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to interject there, but because of the delay, it's hard to tell if I'm going to talk over people. I will say that in reference to that slide, in my interactions with Vince, it's not resistance to structure. I think it's ability to function with lack of structure And I think that ties into the delegation piece, because Vince can function so well in a lack of structure, figure it out. He has self-confidence. He's assertive. He'll solve it. And when people can't keep pace with that, because it's just not how they're wired, that's when sometimes that delegation with a lot of rope can lead to them choking themselves out, because they just don't operate the way that he does. And because he and I, when we found each other in the consulting world and did some work together on similar clients, we married up real well, and it just worked really seamlessly together because we're both in an architect quadrant, could function well in the gray.
Yeah, agreed.
So last slide here, Vince, you went through this exercise with me and John. You said that you've enjoyed taking these kinds of assessments before, doing self-evaluation. Now you've been through this one. We've, talked about some things very openly today. How do you apply what you've gathered from this OAD experience with me and John here on the Work in Progress podcast, and apply that to what you're doing today on the professional front and otherwise to, find greater success? How do you apply these leadership lessons?
Well, I think it's just, I'm a pretty self-aware person. I think that's why I can accept the outcomes of this diagnosis, right? And being self-aware, I think, also gives you the ability to, because I'm honest with myself and self-aware, I'm going to take some of these lessons and try to incorporate them into my daily life. Like, certainly, again, I think the thing we highlighted here is the impatience stuff. Like, one of the things I've done in the past, and it's worked really well for me, I used to be that guy who came in the morning, checked the emails, and I'd be firing off emails in different types of moods. And now every time I get an email or something that's going to trigger a reaction, I'd sit on it for 24 hours, let it percolate or settle down, and then I might or may not respond to it.
Yeah.
So it's stuff like that. It's reminders that, like, you don't need to make that decision about that right now. Just put that aside, because right now where your mental state is, you're probably not going to make the right decision. So I think this exercise really kind of reiterates that for me as well, right? For sure. And then the delegation thing, because I can't do everything myself, right? Like, I do need to rely on others, whether it's, in this particular case, other members here, or, as you know, Will, my wife's involved in the business, or my wife, right? And I have to understand that, like, I'm feet, yards, miles ahead of them, and realize that the things coming out of my head are probably coming out faster to them because I've already thought this through, where they're just experiencing this for the first time, right? So.
Yeah, and what Will does is, on vacation, he walks ahead of his family and leaves them behind. So,
he doesn't do that. I know Will. He's a family guy.
He absolutely did that. He admitted it on a podcast.
Blazing a path.
Blazing a path.
I still don't believe it.
All right. Will, Vince says you're a liar. Let's end the show on that. Vince.
Only when it suits me.
Totally optional. Do you have somebody who you think would enjoy this? We planned this.
I actually have a bunch of folks. What's great about being in Sales HQ for the last month is that I've had a lot of visitors. And one of my favorite visitors was last week. My good friend and mutual friend here for you guys is Eric Boggs. So I'd like to nominate my friend Eric Boggs to step up.
Awesome. We will be in touch, and we will contact Mr. Boggs, and let's see if we can get him on the pod.
He'll do it. You just tell him I told him you should do it.
You'll tell him that you told him to do it. That's how the show works.
Little known fact, Eric's been on television too, by the way. That's
right.
Now, this should be easy. Will, I can't believe it. Our show's over. You start.
You can never believe it, John. You enjoy these so much. It's hard to see them end. Great to be here with you, Vince. Wish you much success with Sales HQ. Thanks for joining the show with us today. Look forward to promoting this online. I am Will Barfield.
I'm John Lane, and we are a work in progress.
A work in progress.
This is going to sync up perfectly. Thank you, Vince.
With a delay.
Phil. Work in Progress is a podcast presentation of Slipshod Productions, a Available on LinkedIn and YouTube. Executive produced and starring John Wayne and Will Barfield. Talent booking, production, and editing by John Wayne. Thanks for watching. See you next week.